All right. Again, welcome to the webinar today. We really appreciate you taking some time out of your day and hopping on with us to overview our integration with AMS. I'm Tracy and I'm Energy Toolbase's marketing manager, just to kick things off today. So this integration, a lot of you have obviously seen it. It officially went live a couple weeks ago if you saw our press release. This integration is really critical for the growth of future energy storage projects, and it lets our users run the accurate financial analysis with us, which is what we're experts at, and optimize it with AMS's leading market software. We're really excited to be sharing this with you and showing you exactly how this integration works so you can start utilizing it. We have a great lineup of speakers for today's webinar from both Energy Toolbase and AMS. Each of our speakers all played huge roles in getting this integration live. Clara Nagy-McBain, the Director of Business Development at AMS, and Felicia Lee, an energy analyst, are our panelists for today from the AMS side. And from the Energy Toolbase side, we have our COO, Adam Gurza, and our Executive Vice President, Scott D'Ambrosio. Here's a quick look at today's webinar agenda. We have a lot to go over between both parts of this integration. Some quick housekeeping items to remind you of. We are going to be recording this webinar, and once it's over, we'll be sending the recording to everybody who registered. So feel free to pass it along. We'll also be sending out the slide deck. And as usual, we'll do our Q&A at the end of the webinar. If you have any questions for any of our speakers, please chat them over and we'll get to them at the end of the webinar. And if not, we will respond via email afterwards. So Energy Toolbase was one of the first platforms in the market to begin modeling storage, and we are now the market leader for modeling, optimizing, and proposing the economics of behind-the-meter energy storage projects. We currently have more than 1,000 of the leading energy organizations worldwide modeling with our platform, and we have especially strong traction in the C&I segment of the market with an estimated 75% adoption rate of Solar Power World's ranking of the top 100 commercial solar installers. This integration, as I mentioned, gives them the ability to run those AMS validated savings simulations while still having Energy Toolbase's accurate and transparent financial analysis. The storage market has been a little slow getting its footing, so we're excited about this integration because we're pretty confident it's going to lead to more storage projects getting modeled, sold, and installed. And we're super thrilled to be working with such a successful team like AMS. So with all that said, I'm going to turn things over to the AMS team, Clara and Felicia.
Thanks, Tracy. Hi, everyone. This is Clara. I'm going to start by talking a little bit about AMS. Next slide, Tracy. Thanks. So AMS began as an energy storage development company in the middle of 2013. When we started, we had a vision to do three things. The first of which is to deploy behind-the-meter batteries, deliver bill savings to end users, and also to aggregate assets to serve as a virtual power plant for grid services. In late 2014, AMS was awarded a 50 megawatt, 300 megawatt hour contract from Southern California Edison to do just that. And in order to execute on that contract, we had to build software in-house. And that software that we had to build in-house was created to make financially optimal decisions at the battery level and at the portfolio level. And in late 2017, AMS made the decision to pivot the business from an energy storage development company to focus on the execution and sale of our software. And that is part of the reason why we're here today. Next slide, Tracy. Thank you. Great. So the software that we created is called Armada. It's an AI software platform that uses deep learning algorithms to enable optimized energy storage assets and dispatching of those assets. In order to make a behind-the-meter battery project successful from a financial and operational standpoint, you need both the hardware and the software, and that's where we come in. Our optimization software allows projects to operate effectively and leverages data to extract the maximum value. Now, how do we do this? My colleague Felicia is going to go into some of the details on how our software uses this data to forecast load and optimize battery behavior.
Thanks, Clara. And next slide, Tracy. So as all of you know, one of the main advantages of storage is the capability of stacked revenues. This might include value from the utility tariff, demand response programs, on-site generations, incentive requirements, the list goes on. But in order to capture the most value from these opportunities, the operating asset, in this case storage, needs to make a series of intelligent decisions, largely based on the customer's load. The slide that you see here highlights some of the data streams our software processes in real time and the resulting load forecast. The different colors show the forecast at different time horizons from the next 15 minutes to the day ahead. So in the next slide, the white line shows the actual load. So you can see that our machine learning methods are forecasting quite accurately. And this is the requisite which determines battery behavior that maximizes the value of a system. The AMS platform was designed to co-optimize within a portfolio of site-based systems, but we also excel at single-site optimization. And so for this reason, we are competent as AMS in our ability to forecast effectively and deliver value to your project in the form of a savings-based guarantee. So the next slide will show that our behind-the-meter savings guarantee is based on the incremental bill savings that our software can ensure. We define this as the savings that results from the difference between your post-solar bill and your post-solar and storage bill. So effectively, it's the added benefit of storage that you might model in your Energy Toolbase simulation, between step 4 and step 5. The savings guarantee represents more than just incremental savings from peak shaving. In the context of a solar plus storage system, this value represents the firming of solar demand reduction and additional ITC revenues that are generated by charging from solar, and even program incentives such as SCHIP or Massachusetts Smart Incentive. The bill savings that are modeled through AMS using Energy Toolbase are reflected in our savings guarantee. So next slide. Also with AMS storage assets, your projects may have the opportunity to eventually participate in utility demand response programs, ISO capacity programs, and wholesale market revenues with the help of our software. It starts with modeling your Energy Toolbase proposal using AMS. So to go into more detail, I'll pass it off to Scott and Adam from Energy Toolbase. They'll let you know how the best way is for you to get started.
All right. Thank you, Clara and Felicia. I'd like to start off by thanking everyone for joining us on today's webinar. We understand you have busy schedules and we appreciate your time. As I look through this attendees list, I noticed there's plenty of you who are current Energy Toolbase users. I just want to let you know how much we appreciate the opportunity to work with you, work with your company. We appreciate your business. Thank you. For those of you not familiar with Energy Toolbase, hopefully after this webinar, you'll give us an opportunity to earn your business. We truly believe the future is modeling hybrid systems, and if you're not modeling storage today, it's going to be a necessity in the future. Little history of Energy Toolbase. Energy Toolbase was created by our CEO and founder, Mr. John Gursky, who was a rooftop developer in Southern California for over 8 years. John saw a need in the market for a sophisticated software that was able to handle the complexity of accurately modeling avoided costs on behind-the-meter projects. For years, John went home, taught himself how to code, and created Energy Toolbase. This is one of the key differences that makes Energy Toolbase unique and sets us apart from many other software. Our software was designed and built by someone who was on the roof, sitting at kitchen tables with residential clients, sitting in boardrooms with CEOs. We aren't software guys learning alternative energy. We're industry guys who learn software. We understand the needs from a developer's point of view. This month, Energy Toolbase turned 5 years old. We've been modeling storage simulation since 2015. As the sophistication of our platform developed, so did our ability to model energy storage. Currently, we provide options to run storage simulations today. You can choose to run Energy Toolbase's simulation by walking through the ETB door, where we get extremely granular. We provide users the ability for different user inputs of characteristics of hardware, software control settings, value streams to go after, and different dials and levers that affect your battery behavior. Now, for the majority of developers, knowing all these specific inputs and strategies might be overwhelming and time-consuming. By integrating with AMS, we have created a simplistic workflow where developers can have the confidence to model energy storage where the output is tested, validated, and guaranteed from AMS, the company controlling the asset in the field. Well, talking about the guarantee, let's talk about how that works. So AMS offers a saving-based guarantee that focuses on achieving realized savings through energy storage technology and sophisticated software controls. By running AMS simulation in Energy Toolbase, the user will see expected savings flow through to the cash flow, which is realistic expectations of what's achievable with the energy storage system in operations. AMS guarantees 80% of those expected savings and guarantees that amount regardless. The end user will be made whole on those savings. Well, what's the trade-off? For this guarantee and peace of mind, AMS charges a small SaaS fee. Within 24 hours of being approved for the integration, Energy Toolbase will drop in 4 custom transactions in your account that is already inclusive of the fee structure. Now, we know every developer has their own way of modeling financial options, so these transactions are flexible enough to be able to mold into the situations you're modeling today. If you have any questions about the transaction, please reach out to your dedicated account manager. We are here to help. Well, the next question is, well, how do you sign up? Well, simply navigating to step 5 and clicking on the AMS logo. This will prompt this page to appear where you can read about AMS, and then you could accept right here. And once you accept that, it's a dual opt-in process where the AMS team will either contact you, approve, or reject the application. Once the application is approved, the logo will activate in step 5 and you could start modeling. There's absolutely no cost to using the integration. The ability to simplistically, confidently model one of the leading software controls in the world is included in your price of your subscription. You're crazy not to apply for this free service. This will only equip you with another option in your sales tool belt to provide value to your client. Well, what are the AMS requirements? And I'm going to pass the mic to Clara to speak about that shortly.
Thanks, Scott. Yeah, from AMS's perspective, we are here to help all of our Energy Toolbase subscribers to add storage to their solar projects. So we have very little interest in rejecting any application. So we will do our best to approve everyone that comes our way.
Thank you, Clara. Well, I think we're living in exciting times. We're witnessing the evolution of renewable energy. In the past, I would ask developers, hey guys, are you modeling storage today? And the responses would be, it doesn't pencil, or it's too expensive. With new policies like time of use shifts in California, new net metering policies all across the United States, incentive programs that give you adders for storage, the days of those comments are ending. Storage can pencil, and we recommend you easily create iterations of proposals to see the effects of adding energy storage. We can all agree renewable energy policy in this country is constantly changing. By adding a technology that is intelligent and flexible like storage, you'll only protect your client's interest and investment. I'm going to pass it to Mr. Adam Gerza to run through some situations and examples.
Awesome. Thank you, Scott. All right, I'm going to show my screen. Hopefully you're all hearing me. Hello, everyone. Adam with Energy Toolbase. Thank you, Scott. Thank you, Clara. Thank you, Felicia. Thank you, everybody. And I am really excited that I am the guy that gets to do the honors here and demo this integration in action for the very first time. So I've got some deals set up, and we're going to be running through a few different case study projects, all with real-world data. And in the process, I hope I'm going to kind of illustrate a lot of best practices that you can be thinking about and that you can be using to really get full benefit out of this integration, which, as everyone just said, and I'll say it again, we're incredibly excited about going live on here. So here we go. Hopefully you're seeing my screen. I'm going to kind of pick things up from kind of where Scott passed me the ball, assuming that you as an Energy Toolbase user have applied to use the service and the AMS folks have approved you. So now we can get in and kind of use the integration. So I am going to start in San Diego, one of our favorite places. I'm going to snap open actually this load profile separately, and we're going to jump into this project here. I always like to look at the seasonal quarterly load profiles. I think it's really good for giving a little bit of context for the shape of the customer's load. This particular customer here, this is real life data. I believe it was for a office complex for a medical facility. And you can kind of see that in the fact that they do have a lot of baseline load all day. And then their shoulder here, as I kind of like to call it, starts early, maybe around 6 or 7, and kind of goes late. to 8 or 9. So I just want to give a little context for this first case study that we're going to be jumping into. And it does look pretty consistent throughout the year, just eyeballing it here on the average quarterlies. Okay, so let's jump on in. You all are familiar with this screen here. We're just going to kind of step right into, actually, before I do that, just kind of really quickly level set and just show you in step 2 the rate schedules we're using. This is the very common ALTOU to DGR rate switch down in San Diego, and you can notice that I am modeling with the January 1, 2019 effective rates. Okay, so let's start by adding some solar to the project. I'm going to use the NREL engine, kind of quickly build this up. I actually kind of came up with some numbers in advance that I wanted to use. I'm going to do 525 kW coming in at $2.50 a DC watt, which I think is a pretty reasonable assumption on the solar side. And now we're going to step right on into what everybody's waiting for, is to kind of see the AMS integration in 5. So we're going to add a system. And now that I have permission to go through this door, as Scott was kind of referring to it, we can see the 6 approved hardware designs that AMS has currently configured on the back end. So I do want to mention that one of the real advantages and benefits of this integration is how iterative this is going to be as we go forward. Certainly the hardware side of the equation will change, right? We'll see new generation hardware. We'll see updates here. Also, obviously, on the software control side, which we're going to dig into in a minute. But right here, right now, these are the 6 off-the-shelf equipment vendors that AMS is working with. So I'm going to start with the Tesla Power Pack, which you can see is a 210-444. On the control settings drop-down, AMS has gone very, I think, I don't want to call it simplistic, but very intuitive, let's say, right out of the gate. There's basically 2 different ways that AMS is kind of set up on the back end that you're going to be operating this battery, either pairing it with solar and going after your tax credit, or not charging from solar and not capturing a tax credit. Presumably this would probably be for retrofit situations. So we'll definitely, for this model here, run it with solar. And I'm just going to run 1 initially. Now, pricing is something I want to touch on quickly. As always, in step 4 and step 5, Energy Toolbase has suggested pricing. I hope everyone knows how to set this in your own company settings. I do want to actually jump over to the company settings tab really quickly and just make mention of something that's also part of this integration. So this is the same view you'd have in your account. And if you navigate over to the energy storage settings tab, favorable or aggressive assumptions, I want to use real world assumptions. And again, one of the other beauties of now running this simulation is kind of what I had mentioned earlier, how iterative this is. You could very easily run this and then copy, duplicate, and maybe add a little bit more margin to your deal, or based on how the project economics are looking, sharpen your pencil a little bit. So there it is, right there in action, folks. We just ran that with the AMS back end. And this view here is going to look very familiar to folks that are already modeling storage projects with us. And I know a lot of you are used to kind of going right here and kind of want to know the bottom line, which is, well, how much did I save in dollar terms? Let me actually snap open a little calculator here. I always like putting this into annual terms, so that'd just be 94 times the capacity, 444. So on this AMS run, we're coming in at about $42,000 in expected savings. And that's actually not the same number as AMS performance guarantee. I'm going to show you where that lives separately. But certainly this number, as in when you're running other simulations, is the, I think AMS is referring to it as the expected savings, base case savings number. So this is obviously a very attractive project here. But I will say, again, as a disclaimer, this is all based on real world load data and, again, the January 1, 2019 rates. We'll talk about, I know, actually I talked with Clara before this webinar, and I think a number that they kind of have in their back pocket, and maybe Clara can talk about this a little in the Q&A, as you qualify projects, and you're adding AMS storage to an existing solar project potentially, and you're trying to say, hey, is this a worthwhile project? Is this a project that I should spend more time and development resources on? I think Clara had mentioned to me the $55 per kilowatt hour of storage capacity number is a good kind of just a ballpark number for you to kind of work off of. So this obviously is very lucrative here, almost double that. Okay, so let's step into step 6. And as Scott was mentioning, so when you're running an AMS simulation in step 5, it is a prerequisite that you're adding an AMS transaction in step 6. So I'm going to run this one with the savings guarantee and O&M. And we do have some user inputs on this transaction. Notice the label here. I think the AMS folks, and again, Clara can riff on this a little bit later, the standard term for an AMS agreement is 20 years, and I think it can be extended longer. So if you want to run this on a 25 or 30-year basis, I believe that's fine. If you wanted to run this on a shorter term, I think you need to talk to AMS offline, and they may need to generate a custom SaaS fee structure with you, because this is the fee structure we're going to look at in a minute is based on a 20-year or greater term. Besides that, let's just kind of throw in some placeholder values on O&M. Why don't I conservatively just start this in year? Oops, that was start year. We'll go year 1. How about I bake in $1,500 and we'll inflate that around inflation at 1.5%. Okay, so this is kind of pairing the AMS transaction with the simulation, and let's now, without any further ado, jump into a document template and kind of look how this models. Now, the nice thing about this is you can absolutely use your existing templates on the document side. So we know folks have spent a lot of time and energy building up their document templates. You can absolutely run AMS simulations with the AMS transaction with whatever existing document you already have. So let's kind of quickly step in and look at this, and I'll just start with the project summary page. And this is obviously, we just built it together. This is a combined PV plus ESS AMS system. So these numbers are basically inclusive of both the solar and the storage piece of the equation. And this obviously looks like a pretty attractive project coming in at a 6.5-year payback and a double-digit IRR, 12.5%, let's call it. Everything else, as you'd expect in this document, is the way you'd render it, as if you were using another or building your own step 5 energy storage run, like going through the Energy Toolbase store. And then let's just really quickly, oh yeah, also I should have kind of done a little level setting. I did include SCHIP, and we assume that you're taking a tax credit on the storage system. And then on the solar side, we were doing pretty standard, taking a tax credit, federally depreciating it, and also taking a state 10-year depreciation, just to kind of talk about some of those assumptions which led to these economics. Let's jump down to the cash flow and just kind of quickly take a peek here. And you can see the AMS SaaS fee structure baked right into the model. And this is using kind of custom logic where, this is very specific to the hardware, size of the project. Be mindful of the O&M line item, especially the AMS folks have set a battery replacement at year 10, 11, play pretty largely into the model, especially when we're calculating IRR or NPV. And obviously O&M, that's an assumption, as always, for you as the developer or the EPC to specify where that lands. So there's kind of the full financial model with the AMS simulation and the transaction. One other document I want to kind of quickly hit on. We actually haven't quite finalized this yet, but this will be landing in your accounts in the coming days, or let's call it at least within 1 week. And the name of this is the AMS Performance Guarantee. And effectively, this is a one-page addendum. The AMS folks are kind of still finalizing this, but this is nice just because it has a little bit of language on the performance guarantee and also showing you the actual guaranteed savings amount. And I believe the AMS folks have been pretty transparent about how this number is getting derived. It's effectively 80% of that expected savings amount. And again, this is certainly the number that we think we would achieve, and this is all what's baking into the financial model. And then on the performance guarantee side, you can kind of pretty clearly see that. And this is something that you're very likely presenting to your end customer when selling that project. Okay, cool. So I want to keep moving because there's a lot more case studies that I get really interesting that I wanted to move through. That's the first one there. Let me go back out to the lead level. And let's jump into this hospital down in SoCal Edison territory. why don't I do the same thing, snap open that tab so we can look at a visual, and I'll jump into this proposal here. So really quick on the visual side, this is a SoCal Edison hospital. This is pretty large demands. You can see we're getting all the way up past 500, 600 kW demands, which is why they're TOU 8. And then on the load profile side, here is the hospital data. And this, again, is real-life load data from an actual customer. And you can see, obviously, very different load shape here. Very low volatility, not a lot of variance in this load profile. Basically a lot of always on demand at this hospital here. So that's kind of the load profile we're going to be modeling this next one on. And now let's step through and do that. So on the step 2 side, I did also, very quickly, I kind of want to do full disclosure. We're going to force them onto the new TOU 8 option E rate, which folks are going to be forced onto and defaulted onto starting very soon here in a couple of weeks in March. Hopefully you've seen some of our previous webinars and awesome content that Tracy's been producing on a lot of these SCE changes that are right around the corner. But I just want to show you that we're going to be modeling on the new rates going into effect for this particular case study here. Okay, let's jump into 4. Let me throw in a solar system really quick. Again, I've actually already got some numbers that I want to work with. We're going to do exactly 1 megawatt AC. We're going to max out this interconnect here. And I'll just use like 5180. We'll assume we're on a flat roof. So we're coming in at a megawatt AC exactly on the solar system side. Now, here's kind of a awesome pro tip. Best practice, let's say, for you as an Energy Toolbase user, as you use this integration, something to consider. And what I would encourage you to do is this. So all we've added at this point is step 4 solar. I'm actually, before we have the storage, I'm going to throw in the transaction. I'm just going to do this now, okay? Because I want to compare what my project economics are on the solar only run versus the solar plus AMS run. So let's do, again, a 20-year term. Effectively, the O&M I'm defining here is effectively O&M for PV. Let me just kind of make up some numbers. Maybe that's a little low. Okay, so I want to kind of take a glimpse and stop right here, right now, and look at what my PV-only economics are, because I think this is a very common kind of A/B test that a lot of folks will want to run using this integration. So I'm going to reference down here, and I'm even going to take some notes. So we're coming in at a 10.7-year payback and a pretty low IRR, actually. Interesting. So about a 5.8% IRR. And I'm actually going to call this my PV-only run, okay, and save that. And again, why I want to do this, because I really want to have a point of comparison as I now go and add that AMS system in step 5. So let's copy duplicate this rather than overwrite it. And I'm just going to call this one PV plus AMS. And this will be an easy and quick way to kind of look at the marginal economics now, everything else equal, of adding AMS storage in step 5. Okay, also notice I didn't really level set on this, but this is a pretty big usage customer. I actually did talk about how they had high demands, but you can see here, this is they're using 3 million kilowatt hours annually. So when I size up my AMS system here, I think I'm going to go big. Why don't we do the Lockheed 470-940? And we can always, of course, iteratively test out some different system sizes or, multiple batteries instead of just the one. We are, again, going to say, yes, we're doing this with solar. And then maybe very quickly, this is up to you. You guys know your total turnkey install cost better than anyone else, but I'm out what my total turnkey price needs to be. If they're $340 for just the hardware, let's like really mark this up. We can always toggle it down, but let's literally put 200,000 on top. So we'll go like 540. That may be a little much. Maybe like 525, which I think everyone would agree is baking in some good, margin and cost and development fee for the soft cost side of the project and where you guys are going to be making your money. Okay, so now the big comparison point as the simulation runs is I'm really going to be keeping a close eye on the bottom here to see what happens to payback and IRR. And there it goes right there. we're actually now coming down to, actually before I jump into, let me kind of do one step at a time here. Okay, so savings, we're coming in at $57 per kilowatt hour of capacity. So again, I'll throw that into dollar terms, 57 times 940. We're saving about 53 grand. The expected base case savings from this AMS simulation. In step 3, if I remember correctly, I think I already set up my storage incentives. I did. So we're doing a tax credit, federal and state depreciation on the solar side. On the storage side, we are doing a step 3 SCHIP, which is where SCE is, and we're going to take a tax credit and we are going to depreciate it. As always, up to you guys to, or we should say, your responsibility to really understand the tax eligibility rules of different incentives, but this is how this run is based on. Okay, so now I'm going to go back to step 1, and I kind of want to just do that comparison, right? So we had the notes here from the original one, and we're literally coming in better now on the AMS edition versus the solar only run. Actually, I just remembered, I forgot one additional thing. I think to be fair, we're going to want to go back to the transaction in step 6 and update our O&M, right? So this is, I guess, the one other thing we need to factor. Now that we do have the storage system additionally, I'm actually going to go all the way to year 1 on O&M. And effectively, this now is the PV plus ESS O&M. So maybe I'll just mark this up to like 2250, just to be kind of reasonable here. And we'll see how that updates the financial model. Okay, so now we're coming in at a 9.7 year payback, a full year better than the PV only run, and also on the IRR side, let's call it 6.7%, a full percentage point higher. So pretty awesome illustration on this one of adding storage and capturing additional savings. And again, of course, from here, you know what to do. You can step into the full document template, and maybe we should just do this and take 10 seconds to look really quickly at the financial model. And again, you can see the custom calculated AMS fee structure, and this is based on the PV plus AMS run. You can see, of course, we're getting our pretty lucrative SCHIP incentive as well here, and the O&M, the battery replacement happening in year 10, 11, and the PV inverter replacement happening in year 15, 16. And as you all know, these are values for you to define, so things to be mindful of as you're running analysis. Okay, I know I'm moving fast. I've got 2 other really quick ones. Hopefully this is of value. There's one really important thing to mention. I'm actually probably going to skip the setup part and just go right into this PG&E project. And I want to talk about the implications of rate switching. So this is kind of like a more advanced level kind of topic, but as folks, especially in California, know, there are lots of quote-unquote solar-friendly rate options. You know, in SDG&E, obviously the DGR. In SoCal Edison, it was the option R. Now they're going to be calling it the option E. In PG&E, where we are here on the E20, there's the E20R. And again, these are quote-unquote solar-friendly rates that basically, in a nutshell, have reduced demand charges in exchange for higher energy charges. Now, I kind of want to make a really quick point, and I'm looking at the clock. I don't want to get too caught up in the weeds here, but on this initial run, I think I actually, I added, oh, actually, I've got to add storage here. So we already did solar. Let me just add a storage system in step 5. So we'll run an AMS. Why don't I choose even a different one this time? How about the 235, 470? Or even also, of course, you could do something like this where you're doing, 3 of a particular vendor, and I'll just mark this up to 400. That's kind of less important. Also, you can use the Energy Toolbase ETB optimizer against these different design configs. And again, that's all based on the AMS controller logic in the back end, which is a really, really powerful feature when you're trying to kind of right-size the number of units on a particular project for a particular customer. Let me just finish this thought really quick because it is an important one. So we're running this simulation, okay, on E20, and we're not rate switching. Okay, so we're basically on the E20 rate, and we are not rate switching to the E20R rate. And what I wanted to show is this, because I think a lot of folks have real tunnel vision on this number here. And they're saying, hey, I want to get my storage savings from the AMS as high as possible. Of course you do. That is the name of the game here. But really, we should also be considering co-optimizing the solar and energy storage system size. And really, I think the values that you're going to be goal seeking to are the project economics. What's the total payback period? What's the total IRR of the solar plus storage system? So I want to make this point really quickly. On this run here, E20, keeping them on E20, we're coming in at let's call it 6 years, and we're getting $68 per kilowatt hour of storage savings. If we toggle this now to the E20R, and I know this is kind of getting geeky, but this is very, very practical, especially in California, as folks are kind of trying to figure out what the optimal post-solar, post-storage rate schedule is for their customer. And again, so here's my point here. The payback just improved. The total economics moving this customer with solar and with storage to the E20 option are more attractive. We were just 6 years, now we're down to 5.3. Our IRR just improved, our NPV just improved. This is a better option for this customer for the solar plus storage project. But the trade-off here is step 5, that number shrunk. A second ago, we were comparing it against $68 per kilowatt hour of storage capacity. Now we're down to 56. So something to be mindful of. You know, there are trade-offs between the total economic return of the project, which presumably that's really what you're going to be optimizing for, and really trying to find the best deal for your customer. But that could come at the expense, I don't want to use that word, but you're not going to show as strong of energy storage or AMS savings in this instance. So something to be mindful of that I just wanted to do a really quick run on, because especially for the California storage projects in the big 3 territories, it's a really important concept as you're kind of running models with solar and storage. Okay, I think I have time for one more. I'm just do this next one in 1 minute, kind of a speed round. I've got an LADWP project. That's not one we talk about much, but let's just jump in and look at it. And this is on the LADWP A2B schedule. We already have solar. Let me throw in an AMS, and you can see how fast I'm whipping around here. One of the beauties of this integration, how we can kind of just iteratively make our changes. This is, again, with solar. The pricing here is not important because I'm not really going to be talking much about that. What I do want to talk about is one of the big advantages of this integration now, you know, and the ability to use this on an everyday basis in your workflow is project qualification. And this particular project here, I did kind of set it up and run it in advance. So I think I know the answer that's going to come out is not going to be as attractive as some of the other ones we just looked at. And this is real life, right? So there we are right there. We're coming in at $31 per kilowatt hour of storage savings on a dollar basis, 31 times 156, $5,000. And, you know, that's a result of the load profile we're modeling here. It's very much a function of the rate schedule we've defined in step 2. And you're certainly, as you use this integration in other parts of the country, obviously all the case studies today, we're in California. I think Scott had mentioned that we want to do a follow-up webinar where we really dive deep into projects in Massachusetts and modeling the SMART incentive program out there. But you know, we're also just kind of being realistic that you're going to run simulations that aren't very lucrative, but that's still valuable to be able to run that based on AMS validated logic and maybe not spend more time or development resources on this deal if the savings opportunity isn't real meaningful. Cool, so that was the ones I really wanted to get through. I had a couple quick closing comments before I pass it back to Tracy. I think, honestly, Scott and Clara and Felicia have already hit on a lot of these. So this is kind of just a repetition of some of the stuff I just reviewed. I think as you use this, you certainly will become pretty familiar and get good at finding the good projects, the low-hanging fruit, the lucrative savings opportunities, and it's really going to be driven by these three things: the rate schedule, the shape of the customer's load profile, and of course the incentive is going to be a big deal in the total project economics. This was kind of my last slide, and this is the one where I think we've already hit on a lot of this already. Just my quick closing comments is that this is a really big deal for us. This announcement last week and going live on this integration, I think in a lot of ways this is really our energy storage product vision becoming a reality. And that is giving users, you guys, the ability to run simulations, both the dispatch and the savings model that's been validated by an industry leader, AMS, and is going to be representative, really truly representative of how these systems operate in the field. And hopefully we're doing all of that, or we're attempting to do that through a really streamlined and simplified user experience, as you just saw in step 5. And this is obviously very early for us, but we're really excited as this, we continue to improve on some of the feature sets here. And we do think this is a game changer for energy storage development. And we're just excited to put it in your folks' hands. So I think I'm going to end it there, Tracy, and pass it back to you.
Cool. Thank you, and Scott and Claire and Felicia. We're going to get to some of the questions we've had. We don't have a ton of time, but we'll get through as many as we can here. I'm going to kind of split them up between AMS and Energy Toolbase. So the first one I saw was for the AMS team: what state and utility territories can I sell AMS in?
Thanks, Tracy. So from AMS's side, we are going to be constantly monitoring the state and utility territories that our partners will be running proposals on. And right now, the scope is broad, and if we see anything that's looking funky or anything like that, we'll definitely reach out to those particular users and talk through those tariffs and utility territory details in order to make sure that their proposals are running correctly.
Okay, Scott, this probably would be the best one for you. What international markets are good for running AMS storage simulations?
Thanks, Tracy. We highly recommend clients create iterations of proposals. The ease of use within the platform will allow users to add energy storage to see if the economics make sense. So it's a really broad question. We say, hey, just run it, see if it makes sense, and go from there.
Okay, I'm going to kind of combine two for the AMS team. Does AMS manufacture their own batteries, and is AMS still developing projects?
Thanks, Tracy. AMS does not manufacture our own batteries, and we never have. We partner with the premier hardware manufacturers out there and integrate our software alongside the BMS system. And in terms of if we're still developing projects, we are finishing up our SoCal Edison contract. But as I mentioned in the previous slide, or in the beginning of the slides, we made the decision as a company to pivot the business from energy storage project development to a software as a service company at the end of 2017. So today we are only finishing up a contract, and we are selling our software worldwide.
Okay, Adam, I'll give this one to you since you were doing the case studies. What's the sweet spot for project size?
I think my audio's on. That is the $20,000 question right there. And, I think a lot of the sophisticated storage developers that are out there in the market doing this every day have a lot of kind of trade secrets around, strategically sizing the solar and co-optimizing that with the size of the storage. This is a big question. We could do a 45-minute webinar on this. It goes back to some of those things I was just hitting on. Depends on the shape of the load profile, depends on if you're doing a rate switch, but there are trade-offs. And there are instances where you may not be showing as attractive a savings from the storage side, but the total project, the total comprehensive project is better. So that probably is great topic for a future webinar. I think that's the highest level of, I can talk on that. But so yeah, I'll leave it there.
Okay. Felicia, I'll give this one to you. What are the ESS control settings AMS is using?
Definitely. So the ESS control settings in the AMS portal have been already pre-configured to what we would expect to deliver in the field. So as a user, as long as you're working in the AMS modeling environment, you don't have to worry about ESS control settings at all.
And Clara, I'll just give this one to you real quick. This is, what does AMS pricing look like?
Yeah, so as Scott and Adam went into in pretty big detail, which I appreciate, AMS pricing is included in the transaction side of and the document side of the Energy Toolbase proposal. And so the pricing, I think Adam briefly mentioned, is tied to the hardware size that in kilowatts that is on the system.
Okay, and Scott, I know you went over this a lot, but we are having a lot of questions about it. Clara kind of just mentioned it, but how much does it cost for an Energy Toolbase user to connect with that AMS integration?
Sorry, Tracy. This is the beauty of the integration. It costs absolutely nothing for a user. So we highly recommend that you apply to use the service. Why not? Definitely go in step 5, click the button, apply to use the service, and start modeling some solar plus storage proposals.
Awesome. Okay, well, we are going to end there. We're getting close to the top of the hour, but we really appreciate everybody joining us. Like I mentioned, we'll be sending this recording out and the slide deck, and we just want to thank AMS for joining us for this webinar and being great co-hosts. We really appreciate it, and we hope that you guys will start utilizing this awesome integration and start creating projects. So have a good one.